Hey folks, we're sitting down for TWiP Pro Critique session number 7. I'm sitting down with my friend Troy Miller. He's also a member of the TWiP Pro community. All that's coming your way next. This is TWiP. All right, folks, so we've got a pretty exciting and interesting little critique session to let you in on this week. We've got a couple cool submissions to the TWiP Pro photo critique channel. Troy Miller's here to step through them with me. Troy, welcome once again. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to do this. What's going on, man?
I'm working. I'm back from WPPI, and I've got a load of images to edit and orders to process, and got to catch up. So
I hear you. Yeah, I think that's basically the basis of life these days, catching up, right? do we ever catch up? Is there ever a point where you feel like, yeah, I'm completely caught up, I'm done?
No,
I don't think so, right?
Because then somebody sends me a text and goes, "Hey, how would you like to be part of this project?"
That's the art of saying no, right? Yeah, we learned that over time. It's hard to say no, especially when you're
Type
younger.
A's cannot say no.
Yeah, especially when there are great opportunities. All these great opportunities show up, and you're like, I can't say no to that. And then another one shows up the next day. You're like, oh, of course I have to say yes to that. What do I do?
Right. Especially when it's creativity. Anything creative, I love. Anything that creating. So
no, I love it. So let's dive right in, man. So I think we only have 2 shots to go through today. The first one I want to talk about is from Mark Harris, and I'm gonna bring that up on the screen now. And there we go. Okay, so we're looking at the first image from Mark Harris. This is the original submission. I know you've done a couple of edits to this to kind of illustrate what your comments are, but let's start with the bare bones image and get your thoughts on it first. What do you think?
I really like the mood of what's going on in here, and I've got the image up over here on my left, so I'm looking at it nice and big. I love the hair in her face. I love the attitude that's going on here. The one thing that I am struggling with is and it's the quality of light. Mm-hmm. Right, because one of the biggest things about doing portraiture is the quality of light, how it falls on our subject, and what it accentuates and what it doesn't. And in this case, I feel like the light is just kind of spilling on her as opposed to intentionally placed.
It's like a spotlight, and you can tell by the shadows. You can almost tell how many lights there are on her by the shadow, right? It looks like there's, 2 lights here? What do you think?
Well, I think it's 1. I think in his description, I think he said he's using a single ice light.
Okay. Oh, interesting. A single ice light. That is what I'm being lit with. Actually, I'm being lit with 2 ice lights as we record this. So very cool.
Yeah. They're very cool. So, for me, I think that the light is just a bit too harsh and a bit too direct and hot in some areas on her face. And I just really want to sort of focus on her face.
Okay. So these comments that you're making are about the lighting on her face, nothing else right now?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, I don't mind the composition as much, although in my tweak I did crop it a little bit tighter, and then later I looked at it and I went, I kind of like the tension being in the lower right corner. Mm-hmm. But it's more about the quality of light, because I love the model, I love the look, I love all the tension that's in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it too. So my comments are very few on this one. So I'm looking at it. I think it's interesting. I love the run in her stocking. I wonder if he did that on purpose, just to make it a little bit more edgy, because she's got, her hair is perfect. The look, I like the expression. I like the fact that he's obscuring one of her eyes with some of her hair. I love all that. I love the tension, like you said, with her toe on the floor, but not flat. I think that's cool. And those heels are fabulous, right? And then the negatives of it, I think you're right with the harshness of the light. I don't mind it. I like it on her face. I like the lighting on her face because it's fairly direct. But then you're right; it kind of falls off towards the back of her a little bit. And then the other thing, showing that much of her thigh, I think is making it look larger than it actually is with her foot scrunched up like that. So, you know, other than that, I think it's fantastic. I love that. And then your crop, I'm going to bring up your crop in a second, but your crop of this image was interesting too. I want to talk about that because I think I probably would have went in a different direction. So when you're looking at this image, for one, and I know you converted to black and white, which I would have done too. But when you're looking at this image, for one, from a school photographic technical standpoint, rule of thirds, people are supposed to be aiming into the frame, right? And she's kind of skewed to the right of the frame and looking out the right of the frame. So technically, that is incorrect. But in practice, it's great. So for this shot,
right? Because it creates tension, right? It creates tension when she's near that edge of the frame. Which, I mean, I like that, and maybe my crop isn't as ideal. Yeah, but I cropped it to put her head in thirds as opposed to her body.
Oh, okay. Let's bring up your crop here. We're looking at your black and white version, your black and white conversion with a slightly tighter crop on it. So go for it. Tell me what you did here.
Well, my whole focus was her face. Mm-hmm. And then if I would have spent more time dodging and burning, I would have maybe brought the highlight up on her, the nylon a little bit. So my goal is within an image, you know, there's your eyes follow the brightest spot. So what I wanted to see is I wanted to be drawn to her face, not to her right shoulder, not to her hip, not to the floor, and not to the shoes. First, I wanted to be drawn to her face. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's where the drama is in this image. And that's where this lighting is really cool, is on her face.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because you bring it right to it. And I'll go back. Let's bring up the before and after here. Okay, so we have got your before and after on the screen. Yeah, I can see a dramatic difference. Yeah, and again, like when we talk all the time, we talk about what the end usage of this image might be, right? So, right. There could be, I mean, this like I always say, this could be the original image. Depending on its usage, he may have left the space on the left side of the frame for text or for some sort of copy or some other element that needed to be later composited in there, in which case that's great, right? So you're giving the graphic designer or whoever's laying the piece out something to work with, but as a straight portrait standing on its own that you're going to print and hang on the wall or give to a client, your edit is I think it's much better. And then like I always say, I don't know why I keep defaulting to this, but it's that whole, is color adding anything to this image idea, right? And you erred on the side of no, color's not adding anything, or it's not adding enough to the image to warrant keeping it in there. Is that what you thought when you were thinking, or what you were thinking when you converted to black and white?
Exactly. I wish that the shoes, the heels had been bright red or yellow or something like that, right? And then that would have made it demand to stay in color. Yeah. And I would have loved that. I do feel that also the colors are a bit washed out. Her skin tone isn't, a healthy tan or a warm color in the image that we're getting across the web. So maybe that's just from the web. So with that, I can't bring it back. I can't fix it with a JPEG and a screenshot, like I could from a RAW. So that was the other reason that I went to black and white, because I can get rid of the lack of color, as it were. Mm-hmm. But seeing them side by side, I really like the original crop in black and white and kind of burned down, because I like that tension. Yeah, I think that's very cool.
Yeah, I do. That's really cool. Good job, Mr. Mark Harris. Very good thing, and thanks for submitting this one. He titled this image "Freshy Juice." Freshy juice. So you'll have to tell us you'll have to tell us on TWiP Pro what you meant by Freshy Juice and why you titled it that. Is that her name? Could that be her name? Freshy Juice? I don't know.
I know that judges in image competition would be confused if you used that title.
Really? Why? Because the title has to be descriptive of what it is?
It doesn't have to be, but in most competitions, in the way that we do them, is they read the title, then they flip the image. Right. So if you use a title like Freshy Juice and then you flip the image, I mean, there's already a predefined vision in the judge's head. And if it doesn't line up, it can confuse them. Okay. So that can be tough.
Now, would you, before we leave this image, you mentioned if the shoes were red, I don't do this anymore. I used to, I don't know, 2 decades ago or so, but I went on literally like 2 decades ago, I went on this tangent of selective color. You remember that era?
I do, and I will never do it again.
You did it too, huh? Like in that shot with, I mean, I could see some people saying, yeah, I want red pumps in the shot, but I want the rest of the image black and white. Would you ever consider that?
I don't know. I mean, you could really play into that whole noir element where selective color can work. You know, if there was like the shoes were red and maybe she had a red rose in her right hand that was just dangling there, you know, very, very uninterested like or whatever. I could see that, but just in general, selective color is out. It is out.
Is it? So what was
for me?
Was it a fad? I mean, was selective color just a fad that we were going through as shooters, and you know when we got the selective color tool, it was not the tool or the technique became popular. It was like we're a hammer and everything looks like a nail. Everything needs to be. Everything needs to be.
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it at all.
I massively avoided it. No, I might have gotten a request now and then, but I just didn't want to do it. It, you know, to me, it just didn't add a lot to the type of work that I was doing. You know, remember, you know, being a portrait and wedding photographer, I didn't see that it was important to, you know, isolate the bouquet and make everything else, you know, matte, black or whatever. It just didn't work for me. That wasn't the way I shot.
Did you ever get any requests from clients to like, yeah, I always wonder this with wedding and portrait, you know, people that do it, you know, a lot, you know, do you ever get clients that ask you to do arguably cheesy things like, yeah, we want a shot of us doing this, and we want our grandparents or our parents' heads floating in the sky in the clouds, looking down at us over the cliff, and you know, and I would like you to put some very scripty text on.
Well, you know, back then, we'll say, you know, back when digital was like brand new and everybody thought you could do that, it was great to say, well, you know, that's going to be $25 an hour for an artist to do that, because we didn't all have access to Photoshop or the skill to do that. I certainly didn't then. We have a conversation. I'm very fortunate that most of them hire me to do my thing, and they rarely, if ever, ask me to do anything special. Of course, if it's important to them, I'll do it. But selective color, haven't seen that in years. So,
but if someone asked you, you would say, you know, I'm sorry, I can't do it. You know,
gonna tell
or you would talk
no.
them out of it. You would talk them out of it.
I would suggest that maybe
you would guide them casually, like nudging an asteroid on an impact path towards Earth.
Sure.
Just gotta nudge it out of the way a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell any of my brides no. I love all my brides; they're all super cool. So if they ask me, yeah, I'll do it for them.
I love it.
Only for them.
Well, let's dive into this next image. The next image is a scene from Honolulu submitted by member Kyle Nishioka. I'll bring that up right now. All right, there we go. We've got that on the screen. What are your first thoughts of this one?
They have the best clouds there. They just have the best clouds.
I know. They got a lot of the best in Hawaii.
Yeah. No, I really love this image. My first thought right away was, man, I love those clouds. And, you know, I wish that was something that I had shot. You know, oftentimes I see images and I'm like, I wish that was mine. I wish I had done that. My only critique for this was I just wish that the foreground, maybe it's just the way that it was prepared, but the city doesn't feel really sharp to me. And then I think we have too much grass in the foreground that we could probably crop some of that out.
Yeah.
But not a whole lot else I could add. The horizon's nice and level. The clouds look good. I just punched the colors and gave it a little bit more of a...
Well, let me bring up yours. So there's the original. And I would echo everything you said before I move on to your edit. The only thing that I would have done differently in here, if anything, I mean, it's Hawaii and Kyle shot this and he lives there, right? So this is clearly his shot, but the grassy knoll in there,
right
on that grassy knoll, it seems like I would love to have, I always want to put a person in there. I think that's why I'm a portrait / you know, that kind of a people photographer, because it seems like I would love to see a couple standing there overlooking the city, you know, or something in there. Like for you, don't you see a bride standing there?
I do. I see people in all my shots.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, a person would make this shot look so much, but no, it's a landscape, so of course you can't do that. So let me bring up your rendition of this image.
I just punched the colors and pushed the blacks a little bit. I didn't crop the bottom because I figured maybe that grass area was there on purpose, but it doesn't need to be there. You know, you could crop up from that. He could have walked out maybe a little bit further, but I don't know the area, so it's hard for me to critique what it's like to be there.
Right. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's amazing how, like, Honolulu is just, it's a city. It's a city in the middle of the Pacific. I love it. But
whenever I look at images, I always think about, you know, when you walk through a gallery and you see paintings, and this idea that a painter put it there on purpose. They intentionally dipped a brush in the ink, in the paint, and then they put it on the canvas. And we as photographers, sometimes we don't think about, like, do I need to include this in my shot? Yeah. Is this essential for the image? Is this storytelling?
Yeah.
And images like this, maybe walking a little further down the path, maybe cropping out that foreground in post. If it doesn't add anything, let's take it out.
Yeah, that's the magic advice, right, from a lot of photographers. Just like we were talking about with Mark Harris's image, with removing the color from the image. If it's not in service of the story that you're trying to tell, or the illustration of the image, would it help the image to take that thing out of it? In the case of the Mark Harris image, it was color and a little tighter crop. And in the case of this image, it's we're saying they crop in a little bit. Does the grass add anything to it, and then make it pop a little bit more saturation wise? Or would you say you brought the blacks down, right?
I did. What I did is I put a linear gradient on the bottom and increased the saturation and the clarity a little bit. And then in the top, I did a linear gradient. I just did it in Lightroom real quick. I did a linear gradient and I added clarity and some dehaze with a little bit of saturation just to bring out those colors.
All right. So I've got the before and after up on the screen now. So yeah, big difference. Big difference. But in both renditions aren't, you know, it's subjective, right? So,
right. Yeah, it's not huge.
Yeah, everything is subjective, especially with this kind of stuff. Cool. Well, great submissions from Kyle Nishioka and Mark Harris. Thanks, guys, for submitting those images into the photo critique channel in TWiP Pro. Cool, man. All right, Troy, I'll let you get back to your day, man. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, and you know I have a lot of stuff going on over here dealing with AT&T. And just so you know, people in TWiP Pro, one of the reasons why this wasn't live streamed, I'm recording this critique locally, is because my internet is acting up, which is supposed to be crazy fast, and it's crazy slow. So I decided the show must go on. We'll record it locally, and I'll upload it after the fact. And that's why there was no chat or no live stream associated with this. As much as possible, I'm trying to do live streaming as much as I can to exercise that live streaming muscle,
right?
Which is, you know, when I started, it was non-existent. now I got a little bit of a bump for a muscle, but it's coming along. Cool, man. All right, so I know most people that watch these critiques have seen you before and they've heard where they can go find you, but it doesn't help to repeat it for folks that may be watching this for the first time. Where's Troy Miller at online? Imageryconcepts.com
is a good place to go. That's all my wedding work. Spicy Jello on Instagram. You can go see some of my fine artwork. Yeah.
The Spicy Jello. I love that. That's such a cool name. Jello. Like whenever you say that, I almost get like a tinge of like flavor in it. The Spicy Jello. What kind of spices in this Jello?
SpicyJello.com. I have some work there, but it's not very, very active. It's all, you know, it's all my fine art stuff I like to play with.
You do some awesome pyrotechnic type fire.
Thank you. Yeah, I try.
Yeah, it's just ridiculously cool, unrepeatable. Because it's fire, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Fire doesn't like to do what you tell it to do.
No. Yeah. And a lot of the stuff is an explosion, a micro explosion. So you'll do 1,000 of them and you get one really amazing, symmetrical, weird thing you couldn't predict. And that's what you're looking for.
Oh, that's crazy. I love it. Cool, man. Well, thank you for coming on again. And hopefully you'll agree to do another critique in the future.
Obviously. Anytime.
All right. Troy Miller, thanks a lot, man. I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care, bud.
This is TWiP.